From the sounds of, I've been reading some background on you, from the sounds of it, you've been like that your whole life. I don't mean hiding, I mean coming out, kind of gate crashing.
Yeah.
Like in 1990 you were a reporter, a newspaper reporter, you grabbed your little camera and you literally crawled under the barbed wire fences of Oka and basically created a documentary being somewhere where you weren't supposed to be. So this is obviously part of Albert's way, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that you know, I think when I wouldn't say this that I'm this now, but I was sort of part of a new generation, and I always felt that I grew up in a country that was sort of half asleep. I think Canada has an unbelievable potential, but you know, Canada has an international reputation for being boring, and there's a good reason for that. It often is, and I think that a lot of people were coming up at the same time as I was, felt that we represented a new sensibility, a willingness to kind of go further, to shock, to confront. You know, Oka itself was a watershed event, and I can tell you exactly why I went in. It wasn't because I was, you know, trying to entertain people. It was because the CBC, which had controlled the event as we experienced it, had the only camera crew inside during the Oka crisis, and then they, under pressure from the Canadian government, pulled their cameras out, and we who were, you know, essentially fighting for freedom of the press felt that it was really important that a camera be documenting events, and everyone there felt that. The Mohawks felt that. I think even the Army did, because it was a weird situation where TV cameras were seen as keeping the event kind of safe. That both sides had pledged not to fire guns, and the only policing factor were cameras. So then the CBC pulls it out, and people felt that that was actually a passive-aggressive provocation, which I think people think is typical of the CBC.
I got to ask you though, but you like provocation, don't you? I mean, you like to push the envelope, you like to mess with people's minds.
I don't think, you know, it's funny because it's a very good question. I think you're right. I don't think I like it, that I do it on purpose, because I don't like the consequences of it. You know, I've been attacked physically a number of times. I've been beaten up by police. I've been, you know, thrown out of a lot of things, and I've never really enjoyed that part of it. You know, and I've been traumatized by situations or by, you know, by reactions, and I think that Canada's just not as used to it. I mean, these things are much more. I also come from Quebec, originally in Montreal. In Montreal, it's much more common. In French, they're far more daring. I mean, English Canadian TV is so chicken. That's the only word for it, compared to French TV. They're so wild there. They do incredible things. And so you know, part of it wasn't just me being like the provocateur. I just saw, I'm bilingual, so I see French TV and see people doing these amazing things, and I think, hey, why don't they do that in English? So, and then people would say, hey, you're Mr. Provocateur.
Well, certainly when you went into the Summit of the Americas in Quebec City, and that was your, I guess, your early experimentation with a Truvy, what you call a drama filmed within a real situation. So you had sort of a script going on in the middle of the riots. That was, again, another pushing of the boundaries.
Yes.
It seems like you're genetically incapable of just doing the normal, ordinary thing. You're right,
and sometimes I wish I could get treatment for it. No, because you're right, because it hasn't been always healthy for me, and it's been very painful. And I've asked myself, why do I look at the ideas I develop or the films I make, and I go, why does it have to be? Why do I have to be walking the tightrope all the time?
But it gets you a lot of attention. Come on, if you weren't doing these kind of provocative things, you'd just be another unknown little filmmaker or tapping away at your computer as a reporter.
But you might be right, but I would say that the reality of it is more has to do with the way the market works, which is that when you get known for one thing, then people start pegging you as that. So when somebody has an idea, like I've got a really dangerous, crazy, insane film that I want to make, who will do it? Well, the people call me up, and I don't like that personally, and you do try to change it, but sometimes people don't let you change. I mean, everybody in show business complains about that it's very hard to change that.
But you, like I said, you leave your imprint of something startling, funny, and anarchic almost on every form that you undertake. For example, trailer vision. Now there is a concept that is all of its own and yet immediately accessible to everyone. And trailer vision, of course, is your website where you have trailers, very funny and sarcastic trailers to movies that don't exist. So there you go again. I mean, like I said, everything you do, you have to keep pushing yourself and pushing some genre into shock people and make them laugh. Do you think you always have to make them laugh?
No, I mean, I've done some serious things too. I've done a lot of very sort of serious films, like Climate for Murder, which played on the documentary channel. I do not think has a funny moment.
No, I've seen it. It's very good.
Thank you. So I'm very interested in doing serious things as well. I do find that the reason I'm interested in humor is I find that humor is really, as a, as an entertainer or whatever, is the one way that you can really measure your effect on people. If you make people laugh, you know that you've affected them. And I love to be made to laugh, and so I'm so happy when people laugh.
You often put yourself in there as one of the players, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's often because I find that, there has to be somebody, like if I'm going to be shooting in a riot, if I'm going to make a film that's in a riot, well, I can't expect other people to go there, first. I have to go there too, and that's like the fair principle of that style of shooting, I think. That if you're going to take risks, if you expect other people to take risks, then you should be there too, I think.
Where do you get your ideas? I mean, is it a matter of you wake up in the middle of the night and these ideas bounce around in your head, or do you get them by talking to your friends in bars, or you keep a journal? Where do these things sprout in your brain? That's
a good question. I mean, I get them at all times of day, and I sometimes think like other people get influenza and I get ideas. But it's not, like what I think is interesting and important maybe is I think really am pushed into it often by the realities of market forces, which sounds funny, but I'll give you an example. Even trailer vision, trailer vision I think was, is a funny idea for, novel entertainment, but where it really came from, I think, is I used to watch all my friends or people I knew that were in show business trying to get jobs as actors or directors, and I would see that they would constantly be killing themselves, falling over themselves to get these terrible gigs to sell chocolate bars in commercials, or to play play the woman who gets murdered play the corpse on a TV show, and I started to realize that if you went kind of the conventional route in show business in Canada, you ended up with a kind of miserable, meaningless life, even if you were getting paid. So I started to think the only way that you actually are going to get a little bit of fulfillment out of the business is sort of by creating your own universe. You have to invent a world that works according to your laws.
And that people want.
And then the most important part is that in the end, people will want it. And that's what trailer vision is, and that's essentially what all my films are, I would say in some ways, is that I've had to sort of invent a world that plays according to my rules. And I can tell you a personal reason why I think that is.
Okay.
I have really bad handwriting. So this is funny. No, it sounds funny, indirect, but I have appalling handwriting. I've never been able to fix it. Consequently, I had to create a world where I would never have to write anything up by hand. And I think ever since then, I've sort of had this idea that I have to create little worlds which play by my rules, so that I can sort of meet normal expectations. So, sometimes I'll do my own camera work my way, because I'm not sure if I can do it if I play by the rules as well. So, and in the end, I think the results are always professional and good enough, but sometimes I get there by an indirect route. And I think it goes back to the fact that as a kid, I always had terrible handwriting. I know it sounds bizarre.
No, it sounds good.
Yeah.
It sounds like an I've got a friend who's never been able to take a left-hand turn in her car because she gets scared going that way. So now she's gone to a lot of interesting places, always taking right-hand turns.
Interesting. It's probably similar.
Yeah. But, okay, let me just go back a sec. It sounds, though, to some extent, that you've created these worlds in a sense to cushion yourself and to give yourself some room for play. At the same time, when you keep on saying you've kind of been pigeonholed as the guy who brings his own world with him, that those little worlds that you've created have become almost prisons sometimes.
Yeah, I would say probably like everybody, my life is full of ironies, and one of them is when I started in film and television, I came along and I said, there's no reason for all this massive infrastructure. It can be done much easier with portable technology that's cheaper and faster. And so I would come into the business and I would say to people, you don't have to spend your millions of dollars on your film. I can do it for a quarter of the price. The irony is that now I'm negotiating budgets for films, and people will say to me, oh, we found this kid who will do it for a quarter of the price. So the irony is yes. it comes back to bite you, and but I don't think that's bad. I look at it and I go, well, that's the way it is. And
it's better than playing the corpse.
That's right. It's better than playing the corpse in the film. And so I don't have any regrets about that. I just